co-chair Joe Restuccia will be here shortly. In the meantime, I want to let everyone know that we are still meeting virtually per the governor's orders, and this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on YouTube. It'll be accessible after. The agenda and the materials for tonight's meeting are public, and they can be viewed on there's links on the CB4 website. If you do not get the e-blasts for CB4, I encourage you to sign up. If this is your first time, I see that there's 7 attendees so far. Okay, I know some of them, very good. If this is your first time attending this meeting, 3 important things to know. After each presentation, first the committee will, after each presentation, the committee first will speak and ask questions and make comments. Then the members of the public or the attendees get an opportunity to speak. In order for you to speak, you have to press the raised hand button on your screen. And if no one's calling in, so just press the raised hand button on your screen if you want to speak. And after the attendees, the discussion goes back to the committee for the business section. And if we have any action items, committee members will vote to write a resolution, and then that goes to the next full board meeting for a vote. And let's see. Let us introduce ourselves, and I will start with Leslie.
Good evening, Leslie Williams, member of the committee.
Betty. Oh.
Betty McIntosh, member of the committee.
All right, Sabrina.
Sabrina Raveron, member of the committee.
JD.
Yeah, good evening, Jean-Daniel Nola, member.
Jessica.
Good evening, everyone. Jessica Chait, member of the committee and first vice chair of CB4.
Roberta.
Hi, I'm Roberta Barnett, member of the committee.
And Paul, you are next on my screen.
Paul Ames, public member of this fine committee.
Travis.
Travis Rogers, public member of the committee.
Hector.
Hector Vasquez, member of the committee and Five Boricua.
Paul, can you just put yourself on mute, please? And Katie, sure. Next.
Hi, I'm Katie Stokes, and I'm one of the committee members.
Yadira.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Yadira Jimenez, member of the committee, and I'm a new kid on the block.
And last, but certainly not least, Joe.
Hi, I'm Josephine Ishwan, member of the committee. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, Joe.
Everyone calls me Joe. I'm sorry. Sorry about that, Joe.
That was perfect. That was perfect, Josephine. I apologize. And Hector, put yourself on mute, please. And Joe.
And Joe Restuccia, co-chair, House Health and Human Services. Perfect. Thank you, Joe.
I didn't know that was your nickname, Josephine. All right. So tonight our agenda is not long. The first item we have is the Slaughterhouse Site. Joe, you know the address by heart.
Yes, 495 11th Avenue, between 39th and 40th on west side of 11th Avenue. This has been at the Land Use Committee multiple times regarding the development of this site. Is everyone aware of what the site is? Yes, no, maybe, right?
Can you remind us all, please?
Certainly. So this site is a city-owned site on the west side of 11th Avenue, 125 feet by 200 feet. It is part of a overall deal worked out to ensure affordable housing is built. It is a combination of a commitment made from Site M, 155 units of affordable housing. That's on 10th Avenue. Is between 40th and 41st Streets. That is now an Extel development. It was acquired for the number 7 line, but only a temporary easement, so it was never permanently acquired. Therefore, we're going to lose that 155 units. And then the other commitment is from the Western Rail Yards for 136 West 20th Street, which is now a park that was programmed, it was changed. And we combined those two commitments into one new development on another piece of city-owned land and worked with our former council member, Corey Johnson, in order to create this slaughterhouse development. It is entirely subsidized within itself. Jonathan is here from the applicant, and it is a tower that is a hotel next to a tower that is a fully affordable housing development. I'm going to leave it there, and the approval already has happened for the ULURP. This is solely now for the inclusionary housing portion. So just general questions from the committee about what this all means. JD.
I just want to add one thing. This was an empty lot, and if it had not been for Joe Restuccia, it would still be an empty lot. Joe pushed for this site, I would say, a good 15 years. And there was very little help from the city, from the council member, but Joe was obnoxious, and as he always is, and kept pushing. Joe, you get a lot of credit for this, honestly.
Thank you for that wonderful endorsement about how obnoxious I am. I think the applicant has credit too for perseverance, because we went through many, many iterations of this development before it actually got approved through ULURP. So before I turn it over, I guess, to Joseph Sparrow, who's going to do the presentation for the inclusionary, Jonathan, maybe you can just give us anything that I've missed in this whole deal.
Yeah, thank you so much, Joe, JD. Joe, you teed it up so thoroughly. I feel like you've exhausted 99% of my introduction, but thank you so much for inviting us. Yes, my name is Jonathan Butler. I am the Senior Vice President of Development at Radisson Development, which is about one half of the applicant, together with Pilar Development. We are the applicant and sponsor for the project. There has been plenty of obstacles that we have overcome, and a few more as well as we go into the future. We are to the Department of Buildings. We have been working very closely with the Buildings Department as well as other agencies such as DOT and the Port Authority. Things are continuing to move along pretty well. We're at the point right now where we are coming, thankfully, out of the COVID health pandemic. Hospitality is starting to rebound, specifically with international tourism, which due to the reports that we've commissioned with third parties, we are starting to see economic data that is pointing to the reintroduction of new financing opportunities for hotel development. Now we are currently in an environment where materials related to construction have increased rapidly, and inflation is quite hot. So with that come higher interest rates, which is an issue that is affecting all development across New York City and really globally. We are combating that. We are actively talking to lenders and working towards a solution. And that puts us into a closing timeframe we would expect sometime next calendar year. If I may have the opportunity, I think we do have a slideshow presentation that may help us guide us the rest of the way. As Joe mentioned, we are invited here tonight to speak to the MIH notification. As per the rezoning, there is MIH involvement, and we are here to notify you of that. Really not a lot about the program of the project has changed. As Joe mentioned, the residential tower is 100% affordable housing. That also includes supportive housing. We're now up to 358 units, and the 75 of those will be supportive housing. And we'll have social services on site provided by CUCS. And that's our project in a nutshell right now.
I want to jump in with one thing for the committee's understanding. This is a little bit, you have to understand what's happening here. We are looking tonight at the MIH portion. However, the building is 100% affordable. So the application and the checklist that was submitted talks about 125 units. That is the inclusionary housing portion, but the rest of the building is also permanently affordable. Correct, Jonathan?
Correct.
Right. So one of the things that you may have to do in your submission, you may have to revise it somewhat because the board will take a position speaking to those units, but also wanting to know about the rest of the units. So we just are clear. A lot of these things have been discussed in the ULURP. And in fact, the developer has agreed to many of our standard requests. We're at another phase of the project. It's another action we're taking. But so we don't get confused, it is not just the 125 units of MIH that are affordable. The entire building's affordable. And the developer has agreed and will reiterate as part of this that all units will have the same finishes, the things that we would normally have. So Jonathan, if you can just talk about that a little bit, why there's this distinction here. It's not the normal thing that happens.
Sure. I mean, yes, there of the 358 units, 125 of them are the MIH, and with that MIH units, with that generally becomes a separate regulatory agreement because the MIH has a certain specific regulation around that, so part of a separate regulatory agreement. Now, the remaining units will also be permanently affordable. Generally, they're going to be part of another regulatory agreement. There's going to be a coterminous affordability requirement. It's more of a technical division because of the way the MIH law is written. But for the purposes of this committee to understand, the project is a 100% affordable, permanently affordable development as it relates to the residential.
Therefore, we're going to ask the applicant also to do some resubmission on the checklist because they don't list things like rents. They don't list things like they sort of, because of this division, I think it got a little bit misunderstood. And normally in our process, so everyone remembers, we go through a process, there's a presentation, and then we'll get a letter of commitment back from the applicant around the items and the specific policy matters that we're concerned about. So we will work through that with this applicant. They have been very cooperative and very helpful in the ULURP process. And I am certain, I say to you, Jonathan, that we'll work through this in the inclusionary housing process.
Absolutely. So as of right now, we can assume rents per the 2022 AMI levels. That may change, of course, going into 2023. But yes, we'll be able to demonstrate the rents as best we can due to the current AMI levels.
So if you can just start your presentation, Nellie, they have permission?
Yes, they do.
Okay, go right ahead, Jonathan.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. I see.
You're on mute.
Jonathan, you're on mute.
Okay, back on. Okay, thank you very much.
Mute again.
Thank you very much for notifying. Again on mute. Okay, as the presentation starts to load, I am just going to introduce some of our team members. With us, we have an architect representing Gene Kaufman Architecture PC, Marjorie Felice. Our general contractor is C&Y Group. And from our legal department, or counsel rather, we have Joe Sabaro and Jacqueline Scaccarini. Jackie is going to take us the rest of the way through the presentation, and then myself and the architect will remain through the presentation, answer any questions you may have at the end.
I'm actually going to pass it off to my colleague, Joe, who's sharing the screen. Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. So good evening. I'm Joe Sabaro. I'm an associate at Ackerman LLP.
We're excited to present this new MIH application for the development to be located at 495 11th Avenue, Manhattan, to the board. As John mentioned, I just want to echo, we're very appreciative of how supportive the board was and is of this project. So we thank you for that. So just to recap, this is the team. We have Ackerman on the legal side, Gene Kaufman Architects, the general contractor is CNY Group, and the administering agent is to be determined. So here you can see the development site is on block 685, lot 38, and you can see that highlighted on the top left corner of the screen right here. This is an approximately 24,688 square foot site located on the west side of 11th Avenue between West 39th Street and West 40th Street. It is located in a C6-4 zoning district in the Special Hudson Yards District. And as John mentioned, the area was recently rezoned back in September of 2021. As you can see here, we have the MIH map, and the site is mapped with MIH option 2, reflected here in red. So a little bit about the project. This is a mixed-use development. It includes residential, commercial, and community facility components. It's 2 towers. We have the north tower, which you can see on the right, and this is the residential portion with some community facility space, and it also includes all of the affordable housing units that are part of the project. On the left, we have the south tower, and this is commercial and retail space, and it has the hotel component of the project. And the towers sit on a 5-story podium, which will be serving as a NYPD garage. So to zoom in a little bit on the north tower, it's 59 stories, residential and community facility space, 295,452 zoning square feet of residential floor area. The MIH income tiers range from 50% AMI to 110% AMI. Those are for the 125 MIH units that we were discussing earlier in the meeting. Overall, there's 358 total dwelling units in the North Tower. The MIH units, the breakdown by unit size is 63 studios, 42 one-bedrooms, 19 two-bedrooms, and 1 3-bedroom. And within the 125 MIH units, we have the 75 supportive housing units, which are restricted at 50% of AMI, which we'll discuss a bit later in the presentation. So here we have some details on the South Tower. This tower is 61 stories, retail and commercial space included, 295,547 zoning square feet of commercial space. It includes 665 guest rooms in the hotel portion, a supermarket located on the cellar and first floors. That's about 5,210 zoning square feet. There's also co-working space on floors 1, 2, and 3, and this comprises approximately 8,441 zoning square feet. Here you can see the renderings, the southern building. A bit about the amenities. The North Tower, in the cellar, there's bicycle storage space and locker rooms. The first floor, we have the residential lobby, a mail room and package room, additional bicycle storage, and a stroller room. The second through fifth floors are comprised of co-working offices, business center, supporting housing offices, and social services space on the fifth floor. The fifth floor also has a terrace lounge with outdoor seating and dining areas, a fitness center, and an indoor lounge area. The 48th floor also has an additional indoor lounge area. So to zero in on the MIH component of the project and section 504, we have a slide here that demonstrates compliance with the requirements of the zoning resolution. So first, 30% of the residential floor area is restricted at a weighted average of 80% AMI. And this number is about 71,937 square feet of affordable housing floor area restricted for the MIH units. As far as vertical distribution, we have the affordable units distributed on 36 out of 54 of the residential stories, which is 66% of the project. The average dwelling unit size favors the affordable average for all unit types. We are seeking a Section 2396C waiver on the distribution requirements, and we're actively working with Builds to finalize that.
What is that?
So this is the proportion of the units compared to the for the MIH units, and then the additional 232 affordable units. So the distribution by unit type.
Okay, you've actually not explained that. Can you try that again?
Sure. Jackie, maybe you.
Yeah. Usually you have to have a proportional mix between your MIH and your affordable. Here, all of the units are affordable. So we do for MIH compliance. There are a number of the units are the supportive housing units that are complying with the MIH requirements, which the 1515 program favors studios and 1-bedroom units. So the MIH units, it's almost artificial here because you have 100% affordability. So
you're seeking a waiver because through the funding program for the supportive housing, you are creating smaller units, and it's not going to do the exact mirror of the whole building.
Exactly.
And you're trying to deal with, you must comply with program A over here and then program B over there. And that's what the waiver is about, right?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Thank you, Jackie. Okay, so for UFAS compliance, we have 5% of.
You need to remember, you must explain all jargon. Not everyone knows what UFAS means.
Okay, sure. That's the uniform accessibility standards. So this is a requirement pursuant to the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 that 5% of the total unit count in the building be mobility impaired units for those who are disabled, and 2% of the total unit count must be hearing and visual impaired units. So here we're demonstrating that 5% of the total 358 units, 18 of them will be mobility impaired units, and 2%, which is 8 units, will be hearing and visual impaired units. So we are complying with the UFAS requirements for the project. And here we have a chart that shows the area median income distribution for all 358 units in the project. So the 0 to 50% is the first column, second column on the left. You can see there's 49 studios, 26 1-bedrooms, and that's a total of 75 units that are restricted at 50% AMI in compliance with the supportive housing requirement. In the third column, we have the remainder of the MIH units restricted between 90 and 110% AMI. And that's 101 units. And the remaining units are restricted at 155 to 165%. So the sum of these three are the total of 358 units in the project. At this point, I want to thank you all for your time. And if you have any questions, please ask. Thank you.
Okay, first we'll go to JD, but I have a question. You had one slide that talked about lockers. What is a locker as an amenity?
John, do you maybe want to explain that?
Sure. Storage lockers.
Storage lockers. So again, I'm going to just note, I would think in this presentation, because we'll put this out onto our website, it'd be helpful if you clarify things like this and de-jargonize it a bit so the public understands what it's about. Okay?
Sure.
All right. JD.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Joseph, thank you. I'm sure this is a stupid question, but for some reason I missed something. There's no bands between 50% and the 90%. There's no income bands between those two. I think.
Can you see my screen? I went back to the.
I do, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, the 75 units in the second column, those are all restricted at 50%. So they're in compliance with the supportive housing component for the project and the requirement there. The other 101 and 181, they're restricted.
No. The question is there an income band gap?
So,
yes.
Yeah, so I think these AMIs were the AMIs that were ultimately approved by the committee and the board as part of the ULURP application. So
Correct.
we're being consistent with those AMIs here.
So right. So I think that's important to firmly state that. You got it.
Gotcha.
Gonna go to Katie Stokes next.
Thanks. I have two questions, but actually just back to JD's question. So there is an income band gap, but you're saying it's tied to what we already approved. Is that right?
Yeah, I can't take credit for that. It was my colleague who worked on it, but my understanding and through the commitment letters that the applicant has produced through the project, these were closely worked on with the board and the committee to arrive at the AMIs that were most appropriate for the project.
Yeah, Katie, just to put in some context, this was not a project that we went through once. There were lots of compromises we had to make in order to get the supportive housing, especially in there. So I think we should, as part of our discussion, we'll go back and look at our prior letters and commitments to make sure they're consistent with that.
Okay. And then I had a question about the vertical distribution. If you could go back to that slide.
Sure.
Yeah. So I want to jump on Katie's question because as part of the commitment, the developer agreed that everything would be distributed throughout this building.
Yeah.
That's in the commitment letter. It's in our ULURP approval. And I am surprised, Jonathan, that we're looking at 36 floors out of 54. We were very specific about the supportive housing, especially. We wanted that distributed throughout the building. And it doesn't seem as if that's happening. So I'm not going to ask you what's changed. I'm just going to direct you to say, you need to fix it. Okay. Jonathan?
Yeah, so I know one of the, and John can speak to it too, but we can look at this to see if there's additional distribution, but I know they were looking at the proximity to the social services.
No, we had this discussion already.
Okay.
We had this discussion. It was a public discussion. And the final commitment, it was agreed to that it would be distributed throughout the building. Yes. So
it is it is in our interest as well to distribute them evenly without the building. It does create problems for management if you have congregation of supportive units in one line, one floor, or multiple floors. There are challenges, of course, with this type of building. You have, as you start to go up, you lose the number of units per floor. There are only, the supportive units are 75 of 358. So it always becomes a challenge about where to place them and mixing them into what we would call the workforce housing. We are continuing to work on that. We feel like we want to have as an equitable and evenly distributed portion of the supportive units throughout the building. It's never going to be perfect, but we'll continue to work on where those units are located.
I have to cut you off and say that this is the point that this is our review. And you need to, as part of this, work this out now. It's not about the future, it's about today. And we already have an agreement that we have full integration between the various income bands. That was a huge issue, and it was solved at the very end of the Euler process. So Katie, take it from there, your thoughts.
Well, this struck me as being a problem, so I wanted to flag it. So yeah, I was very surprised to see that it was only on 36 of 54 floors. So I was going to say what you said, Joe, which is that I think it needs to get fixed. So hopefully that will be addressed. And then my very last question was, I didn't see any detail, and this may sound like just a small issue, but in the sort of lobbies of both buildings and the roof, will there be any like roof access or terraces or something on the hotel side that aren't on this side? Like,
They're physically separate. They have to be separate, Katie, because
I know they're separate, but my question is, will they have similar amenities in that way? Like, is there going to be like a rooftop terrace or garden on the hotel side? And I'm wondering, if so, is there also one on this building?
There will be a restaurant on the top floor of the hotel. It'll be enclosed. There will not be a restaurant on the residential tower. There are some areas of some common areas as the tower does go up on the residential side. But the level of amenity and service is, of course, different because they're two distinct programs.
Yeah, whatever is on the residential side must be accessible to all the residential units, but there is no requirement for the commercial, any of the commercial amenities to serve the residential population at all. Isn't that right, Jonathan?
Correct. It's also, I mean, it becomes an issue, of course, with our lenders and insurance, et cetera.
Well, security, everything. It's yeah.
So there's no outdoor space anywhere in the residential building. Is that
yes,
right?
On the 5th floor, I believe, right?
There, of course, is substantial amenities on the 5th floor. In fact, and then the social service office also includes a terrace as well. That also is directly next to terrace space for the common area of the entire building. There's a couple common areas as the residential tower does go up, which creates some space for all tenants.
Thank you.
And they're all shared by everybody. Period. Correct?
Yeah, there's no like key fob for one tenant versus another or anything like that. They're all accessible for
Leslie, next. Oh, sorry, Katie, anything else?
Oh, that was it.
Okay, Leslie?
Just wanted some clarification. Is the NYPD in both structures or just in the hotel structure?
So I think it's best to think about the affordable housing and the hotel starting at floor 5 and above. Although there are some elements that, and as per the slides Joe went through earlier, that go into that base that the towers reside on, but the NYPD parking is going to be in the interior of that base that both the towers sit on. So it's going to be below both of the towers.
Thank you.
Do you see, Leslie? It's there in the green.
Got it.
Other questions, Leslie?
No, that's it. Thanks.
So we normally have the rent schedule, which is not included in your submission or your presentation. We understand that the rent schedules may change depending upon when you close, but you are in an application period for this now. So we need you to submit that. And do you have that at hand at all that someone can just detail it out, Jackie, or something possibly? Because you'll have to do a resubmission anyway.
We'll submit the 2022 rents to you
Okay.
in writing. We can do that tomorrow.
For the committee, is there anything that you can give give the public and the committee a guide today as to how those tiers break out in rents? Because that's a standard thing we look at.
For the 50.
Well, for everything. I
100.
mean, here we're doing a presentation. I'm sorry, we should have contacted you directly because that's the standard thing that we asked for. You left it blank in your checklist submission. You said,
Yeah, no, I apologize for that. I think it was because we submitted the application, and John, I think, can speak to this too, is that we wanted to commence the builds review and also obviously to come back and present to the board. But I think that things like the AMIs the AMIs are set, but the rents and the closing schedule was not set. So that was the reasoning for leaving it TBD. If you would like to see the schedule for the 2020.
well, no, but in the submission for inclusionary housing, you have the rent set. We understand it may change if the closing changes, but you have that in your submission for every application we've seen have the rents in it. So you need to provide that. Can you speak to it tonight, though? At least the public and the committee members can have some sense of what that is.
So Joe, you're
Sure.
talking about full rents for DMI,
Yeah.
right?
What?
Are you referring to the legal rents identified by the MIH units or assigned to the MIH?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, we can. Give me 1 second. So.
And we haven't seen a stacking chart yet either in this presentation. That's another standard thing that is presented normally.
Yeah, so we actually submitted the stacking charts to Nellie and the team earlier today because we realized that was missing from the submission. And it wasn't, we had the stacking charts, we were just missing the AMIs.
Right.
On the chart day. So we had sent an updated one. I apologize that you didn't receive it sooner. But
yeah, go ahead. I'm just concerned because you have this presentation that has a lot of TBD in it. We've never seen that ever in a presentation. Did Jackie freeze?
It looks like it.
I think she froze. Yeah, right.
Yeah, it looks like it. But in the meantime, I'm wondering if I can ask you 1 or 2 questions, Joe.
Yes.
Well, one thing is, do we have another building that's similar to this in the district? Where there's MIH in one building and permanent, and I don't know what the other units are called.
No, this building is 100% affordable, a portion of which is, it's 100% affordable, a portion of which, the affordability of portion of which is governed by MIH. But then as Jonathan noted, the rest of the building is affordable, governed by a separate regulatory agreement. So it is that we have done only one building, Maria, which was 100% affordable, inclusionary with various income tiers. And that's the building you know as Site 7.
What street is that? 53rd?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
And then my other question was, I think I know the answer, but I just want to be sure. In the units, is there ever a difference in the way the units look?
The apartment finishes.
In these kinds? Yeah, there are differences in the apartment finishes?
No, that's already been agreed to, Jonathan, right?
Yeah, and I will speak to my time. You know, I've been in affordable housing longer than I've been in Radson, and the general practice is that that I've seen anyway, and other developers as well as us. I mean, you use the same finishes because it's quite cost efficient and it's the right thing to do. It's equitable. So there's really no reason to try to have different finishes and say lower income units or higher income units. I think you'd be at an advantage with management as well as ordering materials.
Okay.
Well, that is
Thank you.
distinct from every developer who's walked into this virtual room who has multiple finishes, and most of our job is negotiating the similar finishes throughout. So, Yadira.
I haven't come across that, Joe. I'd love some.
Any of the big boys, that's really a problem. Go ahead, Yadira.
Guess when we work in 100% affordable, we stick together.
I do have a quick question. I see that there's a lot of studio and one bedroom units. How are you all going to handle when there's a life-changing event for residents? Will you adapt a apartment transfer policy? How will you handle that? Because that's a lot of studios and one bedrooms, and life happens. People and family grow.
Yes. So a good portion of the studios and one bedrooms are assigned to the supportive units. Generally, those people's life circumstances do not change as drastically as some of the workforce housing tenants do. We're also, in this market, we see a lot of movement. We see a lot of lease up, especially towards the higher income units. Folks are generally renting until they're able to buy, so to speak. So we do see movement, but it's generally handled through lease up, as when people's circumstances change, they're generally already thought of moving along.
We actually don't have that in our district. We have the opposite. We have people in a one bedroom apartment. All of a sudden there's a family or a child, or people are married. So we're going to probably request that you give to us some sort of internal apartment transfer policy, because people are not moving and buying, trust me, in the various income bands that we're dealing with. I'm seeing people, the committee members, shaking their heads. Yes, that's the nature of it. And actually, just so you know, Jonathan.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm actually one of those who's stuck in a studio because they won't, adhere to something like that.
Yeah. And we have people in one bedrooms. Our co-chair is in an affordable unit in a one bedroom with now a teenager. So having this policy in place will be one of our requests we make on this, to make sure that people are able to, as their circumstances change, stay in the building. It's not going to happen in a day, but they're able to have, at least the ability to move around in the building within the various income tiers.
Okay, so it's like a priority in terms of if you're in a one bedroom and you have a child, priority to lease up a 2-bedroom within the building, that kind of thing.
Yes, within the various income bands, depending upon, you have to qualify, obviously, right? You can't go from a 50% AMI unit to 110% AMI unit if you can't afford it. But right. If you can afford it and it's available based upon your length of residency in the building and you're in good standing, you're able to at least access that.
As all units are obviously affordable, they have to the tenants have to qualify via
right.
income.
Right.
But that's fine.
Hector.
Hey, how you doing? Thank you. Very impressive presentation there. I do have a question concerning ADA. I don't know, maybe I missed it, but are there ADA compliant apartments, or are they all ADA compliant?
Let me just try to go through that. Everything new built is ADA compliant, but then there's special requirements under what's called UFAS, that additional accessibility requirements are there. So there's 18 for people who are mobility impaired. So there's a lot more features in there, Hector, for that. And then hearing or visual impaired, there's things like there's not a doorbell, something flashes, all different kinds of things that create accessibility. But in today's world, everything is built ADA compliant. Otherwise, the building can't be built or approved either by the HPD build, which is their internal review, or by Department of Buildings.
Right. So, obviously there's an elevator in the building, so that helps with the ADA compliance for the general building. But as Joe mentioned, there's Section 504, there's UFAS. So there's a stricter accessibility requirement than would be would be allowed just or the open market. So there's in some of the units there'll be features like grab bars. The bathroom will have specific turn radiuses, so designed specifically so that if someone the tenant's in a wheelchair, they'll be able to turn in and around the apartment.
A roll-in shower will be inserted.
Our adjustable cabinets, so cabinets can be then lowered if somebody's in a wheelchair. And then, as Joe mentioned, there's hearing and visual, so as well in some of the units. So there's light signals, sound signals, etc., depending upon the disability that can go off and aid somebody if they're at that level of disability.
Just a secondary question. Are there a certain percentage of the rentals, of the rentals set aside for preference to veterans and disabled?
Disabled, yes. We have that preference, but we don't have any veteran preference, no.
There's a 51% community preference, Hector. And then also in general in the building, that 18 plus the 8 units are the ones for persons with further disabilities.
Thank you.
Jackie, are you not frozen now? And can you show us rents?
Sure. So I can give you the 2022 rents for.
Can you put it on the screen possibly? We can stop.
Oh
the
yeah,
screen.
sure.
Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay.
A little bit larger, please. Make it a little larger.
Sure.
Yeah, great.
So here we have the rents at different AMI levels. This chart is for 2022 rents. And you can see the different income bands at the top left in red. And the rents by income level are here, the gross rents without utilities removed. So these are the rents at 50% for studios 1s, 2s, 3, 4, and 5.
Right, but you only have studios and 1s at 50%, correct?
Right.
So a studio is 1167 and a 1-bedroom is 1251. However, because those units are supportive housing, Jonathan, am I correct that they will be subsidized further?
Correct. They will have rental subsidies through the New York City 1515 program.
Therefore, tenants in those units will pay 30% of their income. These are merely the rents. Whoever has the dog, can you please mute? Okay, thank you. So those are rents that will be that are charged. However, people are paying 30% of income. If you can go to the upper end, the higher income bands, we can see what those rents would be.
Yeah, so here we can see the rents at 60% AMI.
Right, but there's no units at 60%. We need to go to your
so 100 would be here.
Correct, but you have units between 90 and 100. Jackie, are you the affordability? Frequently, the rents are set at a tier, a somewhat lower percentage.
Yeah, it's in between these. We'll give you the specific underwritten rents because I don't want to just give you approximate numbers. I'll give you exactly how it's calculated here in 90 and 110.
So for the committee and the public to understand, these are the maximum rents for those income bands. However, in HPD projects, they frequently underwrite, meaning do financial projections, to a slightly lower rent than the maximum rent allowable for the income band in order to create some income, a broader income affordability. I think we're a little bit at a disadvantage here because this is the kind of information we would normally see. And if you can get it, Jackie, properly packaged and sent to Jesse, then we can distribute it to the committee and incorporate it into our letter. That'd be very, very helpful.
Absolutely.
So let me go around the committee to get other folks' questions. Betty, questions? You can stop the share, someone.
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Jessica.
Thank you. Can you just speak to if there's space for a social service provider, and given that it's supportive housing, there's likely to be a nonprofit select or an organization selected to provide that. Have there been any discussions about either of those two pieces, who will take the space and who will be providing the service?
Yes, CUCS will be the social service provider, and they will have an office located on the 5th floor of the residential building.
Great, thank you.
Other questions, Jessica?
Well, I'll just admit I'm a little confused.
Yep.
I'm a little confused specifically if is the concern about the vertical placement of if the whole building is 100% affordable, what is the specific concern about the vertical allotment?
During the ULURP, we requested that irrespective of the income bands will be distributed vertically throughout the building. So we're not creating, here are the upper income.
No hierarchy, yeah.
Right, no, exactly. So it's just fully integrated, because that's how most of these buildings work well, and Jonathan's correct on that. When if you even create a possibility or appearance of segregation, like it's a line, that creates a problem. And the more
so is it the 66% that's noted, that's just for one segment of the population? Is that the concern?
It's for the MIH units, which are one group at 50% of AMI and the other at 90 to 110. Then there's a third affordability group, not MIH, 155 to 165. Right now, it seems that most of those are on the upper floors of the building, and there was a prior agreement that they would be distributed. Everything would be integrated and mixed throughout. So we have to just work through to see what's happened.
Understood. Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Roberta.
I appreciate all the answers to questions that have been asked. The only place where I'm not wholly clear, even though the materials were provided, is if the units themselves are adequately distributed among the different lines. Visually, it's a little tricky to say. It seems like they're more clustered among the AB lines in particular, and I don't know if the developer could speak to that, or the decision to.
I think what we can do is we'll work with the architect and maybe show floor by floor, the allotment of what unit is at what income level. We have 3 income levels to deal with. We have a 90 to 110% of AMI tier that straddles both the MAH and non-MAH units, although they're basically the same for our purposes. And so we'll show you how we're assigning those units like floor by floor and line by line, so you can see the distinction.
Yeah, we normally get a color coded floor by floor plan so we can see how these things lay out. And I apologize to you folks. This came in August. We should have talked to you to say, please provide these things, as it makes the consumption of the information much easier for the committee.
Sure. And I actually have to say, I appreciate the board's interest in it. I feel like a lot of boards don't get to this level of detail, and we appreciate it, because we're happy to provide that information. It's not usually typical for throughout the city.
It is so typical for this board.
For your board, I know. Okay, so we can definitely provide that.
Roberta, other questions?
That was all I had. Thank you.
Josephine.
Thank you. So for future tenants, is this a lottery system or an application system? How will this be worked out?
So go ahead.
No, go ahead.
The MIH units are governed by the HPD lottery, and then Jen, they separately EDC will govern the other.
But it's a lottery. It's all lottery.
It's also a lottery. Okay, it's all.
Jonathan, it's all a lottery. That's our understanding from day one. Incorrect or correct?
Yeah, we'll have to go back to HPD to confirm because we've also received some information that has been contrary, but we'll get back to you on
All
that.
right, so we need to, that's got to be settled as part of this letter because we've agreed it's a lottery, and also it needs to be one lottery. We had a huge issue with developments done as part of West Chelsea, where there were two separate lotteries and people got very confused on how to apply. And we really need to make sure that was the 401 West 25th Street was remember Hector, a total nightmare of a lottery because it was two separate lotteries. There needs to be one lottery here with multiple income tiers and multiple programs. Otherwise, people will think they applied for one and not the other, cause a huge issue. I'm going to go to Travis and then Sabrina.
Thank you, Joe. I just want to pivot back to that conversation about life-altering happenings for families that your Dara brought up. And Joe, I just want to lean on your expertise on here, because I think John's response was, okay, if someone has a baby or a child, then we can make an adjustment. But is there a broader, more progressive understanding of what these life-altering experiences can be, or is it just restricted to childbirth?
No, it's not about child, it's about household size, pretty much.
Yeah.
And most not-for-profits have some sort of internal transfer policy that will speak to number one, household size, income change, but in a building where there's multiple income tiers, Travis, it's governed by the availability within the tiers. So let's say you're in a one bedroom at 50%, you have a child or you have a family member come to live with you, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
If there's not a 50% two bedroom available, you can't really transfer, right? But you also may have an income change that happens too.
I just want to make sure it wasn't restricting like having to take on an elderly parent or having to adopt a nephew or niece or something. So, okay, I just want to make sure that's the case. All right, thank you.
Sabrina?
Actually, this question is to you, or a clarification. I thought that the city has condensed all the lotteries into Housing Connect, and it's just one hub, isn't it?
No, it's one hub, but it's a lottery per development. So you register with Housing Connect, right?
Yeah.
And then you can choose which building and which lottery you want to put your name into. So you can say, oh, I'm on Housing Connect. Now I want to check off, I want to be in this lottery for something in downtown Brooklyn.
And then the one in Chelsea application has different components that the one in Brooklyn. That's what
Right, exactly, right.
Got it. Okay, because I was like, I thought that was part of the de Blasio plan, one hub, but that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, Housing Connect is like your profile, and then you apply for various availability as it comes or goes.
That was all my questions. Thank you.
Gotcha. Let's go to Paul Ames. Questions?
Yes, sir. I have one question about the section of the tower that is set aside, you say, for WeWork, and I'm just wondering.
No, it is not WeWork. It's a WeWork. It's a co-working facility. It is not the company WeWork.
Same question, I guess. My question is the idea of co-working space. What's the current developer position on it? If the fad for it went away as mysteriously as it arrived, are there any strictures on how the space could be reused or developed?
Yeah, I think it's best to refer to it right now as office space. It could certainly be co-working space if you're right that that element does come back, and it very well be the case. But there's no distinction or restriction that it has to be co-working versus another more traditional office space. The idea is really we needed a commercial space that could wrap around the base of the building. Which is mostly enclosed by the NYPD garage. So it creates some nice, facade and eyes onto 11th Avenue and West 40th that the office will provide.
Thanks very much.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So Paul, this was a Rubik's Cube.
Yeah.
It's merely a solution that was very useful at that point in time and may change.
Got it. Thanks.
Well, let's go to Leslie. Questions?
You're on mute.
I just had this one follow-up question. Somebody started to ask the question before about the income bands. And at previous meetings, Joe, we've discussed looking at those higher levels, that's 145 to 165 or 100. 75 AMI. In terms of looking at a more equitable way of distributing those available apartments to the lower, not necessarily at 50 AMI, but maybe 110 in that category, because there's a lot of people who cannot afford 175. So I raised this just as an issue to throw out.
This project, it really is again, I would say it's not perfect. It has had major financing issues back and forth. The only bit of city subsidy in here is for the 50% supportive, the 75 supportive housing units. Otherwise, the project is entirely self-subsidized. And that's why you have that drift toward the higher income bands to make the whole thing work. I would say, Jonathan, how many different underwriting scenarios did you do during the course of this project?
I think around 28.
Right.
Oh my God.
So what you're seeing is a process of almost elimination to get to where it is. And I think this developer, the fact that they've hung in alone, Leslie, is a testament to them trying to make it work. We would have, much like as a board and community, had units going from 50 all the way through with no bands, and most of them in the middle, but it was not possible in this deal.
Okay, thank you.
Joe, I have 3 quick questions if no one else has questions.
I want to go to, I haven't called on JD
JD.
yet. I'm closing up on folks. Yeah.
No question, but one comment. This has been an incredibly complicated project. Not only the 2 buildings, a hotel, how to finance it, how to make it affordable, how to make it permanently affordable. It was not, and as I recall, Joe and a couple of us had to go to the borough president and fix it so it was permanently affordable. I want to give a lot of credit to Jonathan and your crew. They have worked with us, they have listened to us, and they still are doing it. So congratulations to the board, but also thank you, Jonathan and Jacqueline and everybody. And even Gene Kaufman, nice design. You heard it from me. So,
Gang of committee members haven't spoken yet. Pete Diaz, followed by Hector Vasquez. Pete, any questions? We'll come back. Go ahead, Pete. We can't hear you, Pete. We'll go to Hector and come back to Pete. Hector?
Just a quick thing, maybe somebody can answer this for me. As far as the income limits that are set forth, is there a time limit as to how many years that these will be effective, or will, like 10 years down the road, will this change, and are they allowed to do an increase of a certain percentage every year after that, or how does that work?
Jonathan?
Yeah, no, there's no tax credits in this deal, and so there's not much of a regulation on re-registration of income. So, I mean, the idea around this program is for tenants of affordable housing to be able to build equity. So it's not like, oh, you get a raise, you get kicked out. It's a good thing when folks have affordable housing and then have disposable income. So there's no real restriction on someone's ability to earn more income once winning through the lottery in an affordable housing unit.
Yeah, these are all rent stabilized units. Once you're in there, you're a rent stabilized tenant, and also the developer doesn't have the ability to change the income bands in this building year to year. What is the length of your regulatory agreement, John?
Well, there's the permanent.
Right, it's all. That's what I'm saying.
Permanent would be usually I think the legal terminology is the assumed lifetime of a person. So,
no, the life of the building.
Yes, the life of the building is a life of a person. I don't know. We'll the legals folks can argue with that, but far beyond anyone on this call will be alive.
Let's go to Yadira. Question? Sum up. Any further questions? I'll come back to Yadira. Katie?
No further questions, thanks.
All right. I think now, Maria, you're the last.
Did we call on Josephine already too?
I thought I did. No, Josephine.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, we did. Okay. My quick questions were about, well, first you mentioned the underwritings. They were like 28 of them. What is normal? What is the normal amount?
Not that many.
Yeah, certainly not that money at this time. I mean, you may go through, to like 30 something by the time you close, but we're not closed yet. So I have,
I see.
I have multiple iterations still to do. So I'm expecting to break 50 for sure.
Okay, thank you. And the CUCS is going to be the nonprofit provider. I didn't hear you mention the population that is going to have the supportive housing units, the supportive units.
Yeah, it's folks with mental illness and alcohol or drug addiction issues.
Okay.
It's the same population as the MTA site.
MTA, okay. 9th Avenue and 54. Okay, and my last question was, when the building is completed, is this committee going to be invited to view the building?
Joe's going to speak at the ribbon cutting. I mean, and JD.
Can I bring my cane at that point?
We're gonna christen the rooftop restaurant of the hotel before we're not allowed in there, and we're gonna have a great time.
All right, thank you.
So just summing up, also, Jonathan, the reason why is there no administrating agent identified yet?
Yeah, so there was an RFQ issued by HPD a few months ago. So we know there are some users that have applied to that. The city hasn't announced the results of that RFQ. We have been speaking with HPD staff and know that there are a number of administrative agents being considered, because there was a bit of an issue with the rollout in terms of who they determined were applicable to apply or not, and it's a much wider group that is able to apply. So we're waiting for that list to come out, make a decision then. I mean, if it ends up being some of the usual the folks that are already on the pre-approved list, we can certainly use one of those.
But you will use a not-for-profit, correct?
Yeah, we can use a not-for-profit.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a request as part of this.
Oh, we have to for mandatory inclusionary housing.
Right, but I'm just letting you know that we've had the same issue, and it kind of, developers will dance around, and you're not going to, so that's helpful. So let me just try to sum up where we are. You're going to submit to us a revision of the checklist that has things fully filled out, that lists all of the various rents. You'll do a separate submission so the committee can see it in total, because we will put it in our letter. We've had this mixed thing before with different types of inclusionary or requirements from New York State. So in our letter, to bring clarity, we'll have the MIH, and then we'll have a section about the non-MIH, just so it's very clear for the public and for the board. You will clarify the issue of that will be a lottery for everything, and it'll be one lottery, not two. You've committed to do some sort of apartment transfer policy. I can send you some samples, Jonathan, to look at.
Thank you.
You're going to come back to us with a stacking chart. Well, we have a stacking chart, but with a floor by floor layout, color coded, saying what is what, because we attach all of these things to our letters. We get a commitment letter back from the developer saying they've committed to do X, Y, or Z. And you're going to work to get the distribution to be over all the floors of the building, maybe not exactly every floor, but much more than 36 out of 54. Have I missed anything, committee members?
Just to thank them for continuing to work with us to get to the 50th submission.
Yes.
Yeah.
For the Jackie and Jonathan and Joe, have I missed anything, or?
What is the timing that you need everything? Just because some of that we have to.
Our board meeting is the first week in October, so we really need that at least a week before, because we need to draft our letter and then put all the pieces together. We normally have conversations subsequent to this meeting on the language and stuff back and forth in the commitment letter.
Okay.
And it might be helpful, if you can contact Jesse, he can send you some other commitment letters we've received, or some. If you go on our website, you look for other inclusionary housing plans we've approved, that might help you to understand the process that we're in. All right.
Okay. Thanks.
So, given that, and pending the submissions on the documents we've talked about today, and getting the building fully integrated and set in the lottery, is there a motion to approve this pending the subsequent submissions? By JD, is there a second? Second by Jessica. All those in favor, please raise your hand just visually so we can see. Anyone present not eligible? Anyone abstaining? Anyone voting no? Okay, so then we have a unanimous vote on this. We thank you so much for coming tonight, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for your time.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to our next item, but first we have an announcement from Jessica about a specific issue that has arisen today.
Yeah, sure. Some of you may have seen this morning, sorry, I didn't realize we were quite at this topic, but some of you may have seen this morning that the mayor announced a new Red Cross Asylum Resource Center to be opened just adjacent, as I understand it, to Port Authority, where I guess it's actually on 49th Street. Many of you know and have seen the headlines of the number of asylum seekers who are being bused primarily from Texas, although it seems now Governor DeSantis is also in the game. And that the only service provider right now had been Catholic Charities, which was by appointment only, and that there's a really significant need to help these individuals primarily around, frankly, paperwork, helping people access important services, getting students enrolled in school, obviously shelter, other public benefits if they're interested, et cetera. And so the mayor has opened this location. My understanding is that Mark Levine, our Manhattan Borough president, was there today doing a tour, and that they are collectively looking for support for this facility, and in particular, believe that there's an opportunity to get federal funds, which had previously gone to places where asylees or migrants have gone, i.e. Texas, to New York, seeing as people are now here, that we can access federal dollars. And so we're looking, I believe this is going to be going to exec, which meets next week, but wanted to be sure that everyone here was briefed. These are individuals who are already coming into the Port Authority. So this is just the idea is that this is an opportunity to quickly match them with resources and to help support their navigation of New York and the resources that are available to them.
So this was announced this morning. We don't know a lot of information about it whatsoever. Jeffrey LaFrancois, the board chair, contacted me this morning and asked that we do not act on anything tonight about it because it's going to go to exec. I think the issue we have here is not the fact that that a facility is needed, not even a question on that, given what's being thrust upon us from these governors in the South. However, the location is a real issue. It is on West 49th Street between 10th and 11th. And last month, the Skyline Hotel has been opened as a temporary emergency shelter, both for singles, individuals, families, and asylum seekers, 236 beds. And right behind it, 81-bed permanent shelter for families at the old Clinton Family Inn for Homes for the Homeless, which we heard about in our July 26th meeting. This facility is on the same block. So we really have to use our best efforts in working with the administration that this facility is needed, no question, but is it needed if it's going to be here the proximity to other social service needs are a problem. We're in the middle of the residential community. So we have to figure out how to manage this, because the city seems to be looking more and more as if this portion of Hell's Kitchen especially is the place to locate all social services. If this is a good location for it with the Red Cross as a provider, then maybe something else has to get relocated. We have to look at this in the full context and not just the fact that we as a community and we as a district are going to be welcoming for social services. I'm going to go to JD and then to Katie.
Yes, very quickly, two things. I think it's important. 49th Street is not close to Port Authority, so we need to be very clear about that. It's almost in a different universe. It's a residential neighborhood. Secondly, absolutely support for these folks. At the same time, I think we need to be concerned about support for the Ryan Center. As Maria knows well, a lot of these folks will be going to already are going to the Ryan Center on 46th Street. The school needs support. The little tiny parks that we have need support. So federal funds, great to help these folks, absolutely. But the city, and I think the board should push on how do you get more funding to the Ryan Center, to the school, the nearby school. That just kills me that our electeds are not focusing on that, and I think the board should.
Katie, followed by Roberta.
So we actually talked and had a presentation from one of Eric Botcher's team at the ACES committee meeting on Monday, and they're actually very involved on this issue. And Jessica, you mentioned when you were first introducing this that there's only one organization helping these people right now, but there are actually a lot of organizations reaching out to help. So I think just, I do think that we should acknowledge, I think we should reach out to our council member, Eric Botcher's office, because they're very involved in this and are thinking hard about it. And I think we should offer to partner with them. And I think we should just, we've talked in the past about wanting to city organizations to be really thoughtful about placement. And we've said that we're willing to help. And I think this is an example of, if we don't want it to be where it's being proposed to be, that we should not just say, no, not there, but we should proactively try and help identify where it could be.
I think actually I think the Red Cross is a great partner. And I think they're doing exceptionally good work here. But why then do you have two other shelters on the same block? That's just a foolish.
Right. Well, and again, because it's right by Port Authority. I mean, we understand why they're.
It's not by Port Authority, Katie. This is not by Port Authority. It's in a residential block on West 49th.
Port Authority and 49th are way far away. I live on 42nd, and between 10th and 11th, I'm by definition closer to Port Authority than they are.
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, we all understand, why they're interested in that area, because it's not far away. It's not a subway right away or whatever. But so anyway, I would just suggest that I think this is such important work, as you were saying. This obviously has to be opened, and we should be supportive of it being opened and just be proactively helpful and maybe identifying some other locations.
Roberta?
Did the exec team receive information on the duration or permanence of the particular site? Okay.
The reason that we're punting it to exec is because we literally have no information. In the typical city fashion, the council member nor anybody else, it was a borough board meeting this morning. It was talked about in that meeting. And, I have to say that this is serious and important work to do. It has to happen. But are there any other neighbors that exist in the city? At this point, it feels like that. And certainly, I think that this location for the Welcome Center stuff makes sense, but then maybe you need to move something else in order to accommodate that, because it's all about concentration. And it's a very odd moment that we're in, that we need to not just talk about the issue at hand, but talk about the context in which the things are placed. Our job is community. Our job is not just, so we have to figure this out. Maria, then go to Jessica.
I was going to say that I born and raised in the neighborhood, licensed social worker. I have a special place in my heart for families, right? And I think that having the intake center, the Red Cross is willing to assist. That's great. And that is the closest place that Red Cross has an office, as far as I know, to the port, right? It's not a 5-minute walk, however, and it could be one train stop away from 42nd to 50th, and then you walk down a few blocks. However, I think that the amount of foot traffic that's already there, I pass there twice a day to go to work and to come home, and I see what's happening there every day, in the morning and in the evening. Okay, and I walk around on the weekends as well. And I think that that location, there's too much foot traffic occurring to have the center there and literally right across the street, parallel to family shelters. And I think if we wanted to decrease any foot traffic there, what we would do is decrease the number of beds that you have at the Skyline. That's what would make the most sense. But I also understand, like, you know, we're in a crisis. I think that the city can do better. And really I think I look forward to the conversation at exec, because really what this is not about the migrants and not about not helping, right? Because I will be an advocate for saying we need to help and we will help. That's what we're going to do. And it's in our backyard. We are going to help, right? The issue is holding the city accountable. That's the issue. We've been through something similar with COVID and having over 800 beds on one block previously, right? That's too much. That's just too much on one block.
Jessica?
Right.
Yeah,
Jessica,
I mean, it's largely what Maria said, but I think this issue of not having been informed or partnered with this crisis has been now, you know, going on for a month. There's no expectation that it would abate. It's again, just to me, the same conversation we were having with DHS and with shelters about where is the coordination, where is the engagement with local community. I mean, to me, that's what's really, really problematic. And there's obviously a more acute issue of needing to deal with the density that Maria spoke about. But I think that this continued just persistent lack of coordination. We didn't even know. I mean, apparently there was an event this morning.
Right.
We didn't know about it. So
in our district, an event in our district.
So I just think that, you know, along with finding an immediate solution to the concentration is clearly whatever we're doing on trying to implore them to be to engage with the community board isn't working. And I think we need to consider other strategies. I don't know what those are, but I think they need to be considered.
Because I would note, we're not going to finish in September. It's going to be in October and November. This crisis is not abating. And what happens? No coordination. Paul?
I'm afraid I know the answer to this, Joe, but is there anywhere a document that describes, well, there must be some sort of document that describes what exactly a sanctuary city is, and does it make any kind of mention of handling this kind of imported problem or a problem exacerbated by imported folks? I'm just wondering, and has anyone anywhere, and I mean anywhere in city government or any other kind of New York state, anywhere, has anyone ever made a serious suggestion that perhaps all 59 community boards might want to share the lovely honor of helping our dear homeless population? What drives me personally crazy is, you know, we had that what I thought was a very good webinar a couple of weeks back, and the very next day, our mayor announces that there's a new place at 44th and 8th. And my only real serious question is was Hatchet Man living there? Gee, it was right on the right after that. Did we ever get any response from our ask then? You've triggered.
Yeah, let me just pivot to that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me pivot that for one moment.
Yeah.
We were supposed to have both DHS and Acacia come tonight to respond to all the questions raised by the committee and 120 members of the public. And at that meeting in July 26th, I believe it was, our special meeting, we listed everything out. We provided all those questions in writing to DHS within 2 weeks. And we were notified that neither DHS had the correct people or Acacia would be available tonight. And instead, the agendas you saw had the shelter on 41st, Westhab coming. I spoke to Maria, we consulted, we talked to Jesse, and we decided we were not going to have a dog and pony show from DHS about another shelter when they haven't answered questions about the 3 shelters that we spoke about prior. So that is deferred now to October. We had the first deputy commissioner of DHS, Molly Park, at this meeting, and she agreed that she would come back with her team to the September meeting to give answers to all those questions. And I don't know how much higher you can go. The first deputy commissioner is the one who operates everything. So here we are, and we have no answers, and we have another social service issue, a social service facility located on the same block. My concern is it feels like it's going to be 1 or 2 a month, and that sounds crazy, but it actually has happened.
I know, yeah, that's.
So let's go to Leslie and then Sabrina.
Yeah, I just wondered if we have the right local officials elected, should we be dealing with the state and the federal government?
Well,
we're not getting any actions from our locals. Why are we dealing with them?
That's an existential question.
Yes.
But thank you for raising it. I also want to say that, and never forget that the asylum seeker issue, there are individuals who are in incredible distress, who are being used as pawns by Republican governors.
Oh, no question.
Into our city. So we're
No
never going to
question.
we're never going to say that these people are at fault.
No,
whatsoever.
no question. My question is not to do with the people.
Right.
My question has to do with our electeds, whether or not they're doing their job that they should do, whether we have the right electeds, should we be dealing with state or federal authorities to get these issues resolved?
Well, I will note that our borough president went to an event today that we weren't even aware of. Sabrina?
Well, I mean, I have a few points. The first one is that, like we were just saying, this is a political issue, and this is going to continue for a long time until we have new presidential election. And, you know, this is deeply personal to me. Most of these migrants are from Venezuela. I am Venezuelan. I'm an asylum seeker, pending 7 years for a decision here. So if anybody knows better about this, is me. So, you know, it's kind of hard to obviously, you know, try to not be as passionate about this, but one is very political. Like yesterday, the folks that came into Martha's Vineyards, nobody knew that they were coming. And the community came in together, put them into a church, I believe.
Right. And they didn't know where they were going.
Nothing. They thought they were going to Boston. They were told that they were going to give papers, easy access to papers. They were going to get food. They were going to get, you know, it's, that said, you know, that's the reality of what we're going through right now. So sure, I think I agree. We are in a very segregated community that obviously needs, you know, with social services. And we know through COVID what happened with that. But I agree with, we're going to change these people. We need to be proactive and say like, okay, they're going to go to 51st in Lexington.
Right, whatever it is. Yeah.
So, and again, as a community that we are with our electeds, including the state and the federal government, because again, immigration is not an issue that only concerns one aspect. It's actually, I would argue, it's concerns everybody. And it's been an issue that's been neglected for the longest in this country. And so we gotta be proactive, and we have to say like, you know, show our values here, right? And also help these people.
Right. I mean, our job is to reconcile both, which we do all the time. It seems as if the city government doesn't give a goddamn. They don't care about community right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's yeah. I we can go on in this conversation about that, like what the city government is doing, yes or not. But like, okay, fine, they're not doing their job, but we're going to do our job. We're going to do our diligence to find a place where we think they might be better, and they will have access to the resources that we think they could have, right? So like, it's easy to point out, and it's like, okay, fine, we'll do it ourselves, we'll handle ourselves. And I guess that's where we have to have a conversation exec and know more about the facts, because again, this is going to be an ongoing issue. They won't
not going away.
last until the next presidential election, sadly and horrible as it is. And yeah.
Sabrina, thank you first, but second, we've invited to our exec committee the mayor's office and also Department of Homeless Services, so we can hear with their responses to this.
And we
JD?
can invite MOA too. Should invite the immigrants part of the mayor's office too.
Right.
And they could ask, how are we helping these people? Who is it? Lawyers, like everything that, what's not just for one thing, but again, like I said, I know about immigration very well, and I know how complicated it is. So we need people to help these people, right?
JD, followed by Betty.
Yeah, very quickly, just to point out, the fact that they were going to open up a place to guide the asylum seekers has been in the press for a couple of weeks. So the fact that, to address Leslie's point and also Jessica, none of our electeds, local electeds, contacted anybody in the community about this. So when they did open it, it's been floating around. They knew they were going to do it, but our electeds should have reached out to the board and to some of the local block associations about this possibility to prepare everybody and to work together. They did not, once again.
Betty?
Hi, I just wanted to give a for your information kind of report. I also am as outraged as everyone else about the Hell's Kitchen 49th Street Center and the Red Cross. But I just wanted everyone to know that faith-based organizations, churches and synagogues and so forth have kind of made a network of help for the recent migrants, including my church, which is Judson Memorial Church. So they're all trying to help immigrants in various ways, clothing donations. Our church is opening kind of a respite center. We have a shower program. We're and people are volunteering to help recent migrants from Texas. And so I'm just saying FYI, that's all. It's a terrible humanitarian crisis that we have right now. That's it.
And these are the things we do as New Yorkers, but we need to have additional funding for the school seats that are needed. We need to have additional funding for the Ryan Center, for example, where people are going for healthcare. And this is our federal stuff. I think Sabrina's right about this one. We need to talk to our Congress member because we need to get those funds here to the city to support these things, because as much as we do things voluntarily, the infrastructure has got to be there to support people at the same time.
I totally agree. I totally agree with that. We have to get additional funding. And you're talking about hundreds and hundreds of people.
Right. Because the voluntary stuff is the right thing to do in the Band-Aid, but someone's got to go to school. And if there's no seat, there's a problem. Katie?
Yeah, actually, that's one of the things about the seats at the schools that came up. So Councilmember Vouchers representative told us on Monday that there are two specific schools, and I don't have my notes in front of me right now. I think it was PS 155. Anyway, there are two specific schools in CB4 that are taking many of the children.
PS 111 and PS 51.
That's it. I knew the numbers were somewhere. And he was talking about how they're reaching out and trying to support some of the after school programs that are helping these kids and some of the other things, and making sure that the schools are getting the help. So this came up in connection with our discussion, or at the beginning of our discussion, about budget requests. And it was going to be one of my suggestions under new business tonight that we think that as we're thinking about our budget requests and having to vote on it in October, that we think about maybe some of the programs dealing with these migrants. And
I think this should be a request also that goes to the federal government, because
absolutely.
as Jessica mentioned,
at every level, we need to do it.
No, but Jessica mentioned FEMA, right, Jessica? FEMA does funding for some of the southern states to deal with the migrant crisis. And if that migrant crisis is being artificially exported to New York, then those funds should also be coming to deal with
Absolutely.
that, as opposed to putting further stress on our city budget, which the mayor has called for 3% cuts across the board. So, Travis.
It's not just a New York City issue. I mean, now you probably saw that people are being sent all over, and I think will be a case to be made nationally for this.
Travis, you have the last word on this one, and then
Yeah,
we're just going to get punches. The exact.
No worries. Katie, to tag onto your point, someone that hires for a community-based organization that supports schools, we can't find people to provide the services for all the needs that are happening in schools right now. So we're going to need additional funding to be able to bolster recruitment efforts and what we can pay people, because our schools are generally underserved as is to begin with. And we're talking about adding a population that's going to need additional services and bilingual additional services at that. It's going to be very difficult.
So when is the exec committee, Jessica?
Let me pull it up. I believe it's, sorry.
Is it the 26th?
Let's not.
It is the 28th. It is the 28th.
28th.
It's
So
moved to Monday.
I'm going to ask as many members of this committee to attend that exec committee as this to be discussed further and in detail. Please put it in your calendars. And we're going to ask Jesse to put out a good email blast about this, because I think there's going to be a lot of interest from the broader community, from the block associations, from the various community organizations about this, on how we respond, coordinate, and again, hold the city accountable broadly on this. So the need gets addressed throughout the city and not just in the one location, so our neighbor doesn't get overstressed. Jessica, can you take us to the budget?
Oh, wait, Joe,
Sorry.
did you want to go to the public? If somebody has their hand.
I'm sorry,
up
I didn't look.
on this topic.
I'm sorry, I didn't look. Yes, Cat Lafferty, right?
No, Michael.
Nelly, can you bring him over?
I already clicked
Barachi?
to bring him up.
I apologize. Michael, you have to unmute. Yes, go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. So I guess I'm the only one. I support our new neighbors on 49th Street. If they can move next door to me, I would support them moving next to me.
Mm-hmm.
I think that in what 102 minutes, I haven't heard one person note the one department that gobbles up $11 billion of our city budget without the blink of an eye. And we're over here fighting for crumbs for human resources. Thank you for all that you do, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Let's go to now back to budget. Jessica.
Jessica is no longer
I'm sorry.
chairing the budget task force, so I was just going to give a little background.
Maria, take it away.
Jessica can support me because she knows she's more of an has more of an expertise. I wrote my little spiel to share with you all, just in case you are not familiar with how this works. If you did look over, I sent an email yesterday about looking over the statement of district needs. This includes capital items and expense items. Capital have a lifespan of over 5 years. Expense items are usually like payroll and services. These are considered the most pressing needs of the community. A little background, each year community boards create a statement of district needs for their communities. This basically entails committees, number one, looking at last year's prioritized items for the upcoming fiscal year related to their committee. 2, the agency responses to said requests, and 3, editing the request for the upcoming fiscal year. The list is then drafted. Next, the list that is drafted next goes to the CB4's budget task force, which I'm a member, Jessica's a member, Sabrina is, I believe, and some other folks. Over the course of a few long meetings, the task force reviews, debates, and comes to a consensus to create a final draft of all the items. Then full board votes for that in November on an entire ranked list. So today we're going to begin the discussion of the priority items for this committee. And Joe, how long do you want to go? It is 8:15, and I'm hoping you can lead this conversation.
Yeah, I just think normally we look at our specific requests from the last year. It goes to the budget task force and then reconciles it. If you go to, let me just hold on a second. Maria, I can't put it on the screen because I don't have it in that.
Which one would you like me to share? I can share.
The budget requests, the current ones, and the priorities for capital.
All right. I'm hoping I'm sharing the right one. If I'm not, Jessica's gonna have.
Yes, yes, you are.
This is it.
Yes, that's it. So we have, this is the response, this is from our last year, the response from the agency. So remember that we are looking at the budget for FY24. We're currently in FY23. And
Maria can go to the HHHS tab specifically, and I think you can look at just.
Got it.
Thank you. Thank you, Jessica. I was wondering where it was.
So there we go. We asked that provide adequate capital support for Harborview, for the new development in Harborview. And shockingly, the answer is yes, they will do that. We have had it in our budget for how long, Jessica? Like 10 years or more?
You would know, but a long time.
a long time. So when the agency says they will accommodate it, it does not mean you take it out of the budget, but it's then you have continuing support. So that's a very important thing, that it becomes our first, this is our first priority.
So let me know when to scroll or what to do.
Yeah, the next one is public housing upgrades for Harborview. And the answer was they cannot respond. It was about elevator replacements specifically. Next item was number 7 in the overall list, and that was adequate funding for a number of city-owned properties. And it said this request will be accommodated in part. To my knowledge, we have not been able to get response back from HPD saying which part they are accommodating.
So this would be, for example, continued support. You would keep it and put continued support?
No, I think we keep it in this. Once they say they will do it, we put in continued support, correct?
That's what we would advise, yeah. Until the project is complete or until something has been initiated, I would recommend that we keep it on the radar.
Right.
Okay.
Whereas number 7 is projects that they say accommodated in part. So therefore, number 7 and number 12, we would keep it in this list because they have not said, yes, they are doing it. Whereas the first one, they said, yes, they are doing it. Questions from the committee on these items so far? Paul, or sorry, JD.
JD.
I'm sorry, not specifically on these items, but a question to follow up on Katie's suggestion about funding for Ryan Center, increased funding.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a new request that because it falls out of this. But I'm on the capital side first. That's what we're doing.
Yeah, we're on capital. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll go to expense in a moment.
Okay.
We now go to
Hartley House, senior housing.
Hartley House, and it says accommodated in part. We don't know what that means, but it says within the existing resources. That means we keep it in the capital here. Number 13, public housing improvements specifically for Harborview, and then it responds not funded. So again, we'd recommend to keep it in our capital list. The next one, new homeless shelters or SROs for a family shelter. Well, it would come off the list because the response is it's already been funded, and that's 440 West 41st Street. So we would remove it because it has been funded.
And the provider is Westhab.
Is Westhab, correct?
Yeah.
And then the last one is 495 11th Avenue.
The Slaughterhouse.
Right, that we just heard about. And here we put this, it's a continuing support because in fact, it's not done yet, but they've agreed to do it. And then the next one for continuing support is for DEP and the MTA sites. Here we can remove it because in fact, these projects now have gone through ULURP. One is finished, one's about to finish. So we will remove that. Jessica, have I missed anything here or just Maria?
Looking at my notes. Nope. Nope.
Just want to note, and just so folks begin thinking about, and I'm sure Joe, you'll want to take, or Maria will want to take this in the next, maybe it's for the next meeting or the next process, is what are we adding to the list? I just want to remind people that we can only add to the list things that this committee has heard about and written a letter on. So
Right.
there are lots of things we may want to accomplish, but everything that is on this list to begin with, things that funded, not funded, are the result of having done the work. And so, you know, this is an opportunity to revise this list based on work that the committee has done since the last budget process, or alternatively to help shape this committee's work for the next year so that something can be on next year's requests. But you know, this we'll want to put our thinking caps on, but it's not what would everything in the sun under the sun be nice to do, but rather what is the work of this committee, and how do we make sure it's furthered through the budget request.
So for example, our discussion tonight about the asylum seekers and the specific expense needs that are around that, we would talk about, do we include that on our expense that we're going to come up in a second. Roberta, you had your hand up?
That was my question. Thanks.
Oh, okay. So whatever we are engaged with, let's go down now. So that was capital.
Right.
And I don't think we've had any other capital requests from housing. Maria, that's right?
No, I'm looking at my list because I hand wrote it out. No, I don't see any others.
I just want to note though that I was at the BRC CAB meeting this week, and they were complaining or commenting that they have not been able to resolve their roof access issue as a result of both. Now they're saying it's expense money that they might need, but it was a little unclear. They said they were going to get back to us. Eric Voucher's office Eric himself was on the call. He asked for a readout on the issue. You know, there's still scaffolding and other things that are preventing the roof from opening as they report it. But I just want to flag that as something that I know we've been active on previously and may come back.
So for the committee's information, the BRC facility on West 25th Street, major between 6th and 7th, major issue. We secured capital funding to get open space on the roof for all the various programs and the social service needs, and the residents who are there. And I am shocked, Jessica, that it is still not open. I mean,
well, there were some delays again related to the facade work and scaffolding, and then of course COVID. But yeah, I mean, certainly people who've been involved with that facility much longer than I am share your sentiment.
Our committee chaired the first public hearing on that at FIT with like 500 people in 2008. Wow. I mean, okay, yeah, I think we should definitely note that, Maria, as something that if Jessica can get us the information about it so we can include, because that is a priority, because it helps that facility work by having the outdoor space within the facility as opposed to it's a key function issue.
Exactly. That's really diminished quality of life as reported by the residents on the block because people don't have a place to go.
Yeah, Chris Quinn secured those funds. That's how many council members ago it is.
Looks like Betty has a question.
Betty, yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to second what you said about the BRC roof, because I, you know, have my long institutional memory here. And I'm thinking maybe we should write a letter or something, because I can't believe that isn't functioning. I just can't believe it. And should we send some kind of a letter to?
I think let Jessica get us the intel and the details, and we can definitely take it up as a letter. We can almost write in advance for our October meeting, but I don't want to go off to say a letter until we know what it is.
Okay, so as long as you got to the...
I'll follow up. And as I mentioned, Eric's office was also interested in getting the details, particularly as we prepare for the budget. So I'll coordinate with him as well.
Joe,
sorry, yes.
Wait, Joe, just taking a quick step back for the capital items. I noticed that there's a couple for Harborview Terrace, and I understand if it goes to a different agency, it's a different request. But there's two of them that are to Nycha, one for the Harborview Terrace elevators and one to renovate and upgrades, both to Nycha. That couldn't be combined as one?
No.
Okay.
Capital requests are specific items. That's how they're listed, not the fact that we're in one development, because we may be able to leverage one or the other at some point.
Okay, thank you.
So let's go to expense. So expand street outreach for homelessness. And the answer is it's been funded. So therefore, we actually got our request funded. So it will come off this list here because it has been funded.
Mhm.
The next item is enhanced rental vouchers for homeless placements, and it has already been funded. Therefore, and remember, the process is we ask for things and sometimes they actually get funded. So it will come off our list. Next. This is the Nycha Elevators. We're in general talking about now it's maintenance on the Nycha Elevators. And the answer is they cannot, they cannot determine where the funding comes from. So therefore, it should definitely stay on our list because, for example, in Elliott, Chelsea, and Fulton, even though they're undergoing the major renovation through the whole Chelsea Nycha scheme, repairs have to be done until that happens. Same thing with Harborview. So I think we keep this on our list. Next is homeless prevention program. This is the supportive services. People expect basically services for people who are supportive services for people who are coming to supportive housing. And again, it has been funded. So therefore, we've done our job. Roberta, yes.
Just one question. There are a couple of homeless services programs that are funded. Is there ever a situation in which we believe that they should have more funding and therefore should be included again in a subsequent year of?
That's what we asked for, was actually asking, go back up, Maria, sorry. So yeah, we asked for this is asking for additional funding.
Yes. And is there a possibility of a scenario in which you would get that additional funding and ask for more additional funding?
So this specific item, number 17, this is one that I sort of influenced, I would say, and I was told DHS said they funded it. I had a conversation with DHS. I kept it on the list because what they said wasn't adequate to me. And I really couldn't even get the numbers that I was looking for, everything that I asked for, I wasn't able to get. So it stayed.
So is that the
so
case
yes,
now?
sometimes.
No.
So I need to find out again.
I see. So
about this same item.
So Maria will do the follow-up to find out whether what the claim is accurate, because a lot of these things, we have providers who have come to us at some point in time saying we need X, Y, or Z, and that's how it ends up in the budget. So Maria, you'll do a verification on this one.
Yes.
Okay.
And that is
number 17.
Number 17.
And if I don't know if there's a verification on the outreach services as well. I don't know how adequate these are according to providers in the area, but I'd love to have a better idea if they're possible.
Yes, I agree. Okay, I will.
You should check on that, and then we'll see if we can get DHS even to show up. Roberta, how about that?
All right.
Let's go to 18. Provide more information about
that's more funding.
Yeah, no, but it's funding. However, the response was they cannot determine it. So therefore, I think we keep this on because we want to push this again, right, Maria?
Yes.
Okay, number 20.
I agree.
Increase.
Actually, sorry, can I just go back to that one? Because that one involved extra funding for Ryan Center, right?
Yes. Yes.
All of the health centers are included in this.
Okay. I was just thinking back to what JD was saying earlier about more funding being needed for Ryan Center. I'm just wondering if we can.
I think
Anyway.
because these are item based, we'd have to add a new item in because it's a very specific thing as opposed to this is about
Got it.
STIs and HIV.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I know where Katie's going. Got it.
So let's go down to number 20. And this is very annoying because we've had all these providers come to us asking about to extend home delivery of meals for seniors through DFTA, Department for the Aging. And the response is it requires further study. So certainly this has to stay on our list because that's just crazy. Remember, they all came to us and specifically asked this about a year ago.
Yeah.
Code enforcement. Sorry, question, somebody?
No, sorry, that was me.
Next one is 29, expand code enforcement for special district enforcement. And we know multiple buildings, we are losing apartments because the special districts are not being enforced. And it literally says, this request is not recommended for funding. So clearly this stays on. Then expand code enforcement for non-compliant ADA entrances. They say they cannot determine what it is. I recommend we keep it on. These are all numbers of things we put on for expanding code enforcement. The next one is about collecting of fines. It requires further study, therefore we keep it. And then 39 is about illegal hotels, and they say they cannot determine. I think we've seen 4 instances in a row here that talk about code enforcement, where basically the agencies are just punting and not responding. So I'm going to suggest that we definitely do a meeting with our council member about this, because these are the things that have a direct impact on people's quality of life and their ability to live, undisturbed in our neighborhoods. Next one is 54. And that's the pollution monitors, right? Yes.
The reduced rat and mosquito population.
No, number 54 is
This one. Increased funding.
it's about pollution monitors, not rat mosquito.
Oh, where I don't know how I got that. See, that's what happens when you write it out.
This is
Listen,
specifically the issue of being adjacent to the Port Authority and to make sure we have better monitoring. And the answer is, again, we cannot. They cannot determine what should be done. So I again say that we should keep it. Now, obviously, we heard tonight about the asylum seeker issue, so I think we're going to include issues about services affected. And I would think, Jessica, we would do 2 separate lines on that, one for the schools and one for the health centers, right? Because they're very different agencies.
Yeah, I mean, the request should be based on the agency it goes to.
Right.
I think we may need to bring this up at exec, just in terms of actually having a letter on record. I think at least in the last couple of years, it was felt that was needed before it could that discussion alone wasn't enough, that we needed to have something that we had already begun, sort of a paper trail of sorts with the agencies. So at the 28th, there should be plenty of time to do that.
And I think because this is a response to the broader crisis, we can put something together quickly, so it's at least.
Yeah, of course.
Let's go to Leslie, and then so that ends our budget priorities for capital expense. Go to Leslie and then Sabrina.
Well,
So can I stop sharing?
Yes.
My question has to do with, goes back to the schools and the migrants going to the schools. If you recall what happened during COVID, some of the sites, the families were removed from the sites and then removed from the schools, and there was a disruption with the children. We would want to ensure that the migrants with these kids are placed in the schools are not jerked around and don't get the appropriate education and continuation of the services that would be provided.
Yes, I think we're going to have to be very specific, like think it through as to how we talk about this request, and maybe even talk that the city should seek federal funding for the request too, to give us additional resources. Josephine, and then Sabrina.
I just wanted to include Spanish language social workers specifically for those 2 schools, 51 and 111.
Would we put that as a separate? No, we can keep that in education, or maybe it's a separate line item, you think, Sabrina, like
ESL. Yeah, you got to put ESL, teaching English as a second language, because they all need the labeling, and then also have providers, so social workers that speak Spanish.
We'll turn to the budget task force to determine if you do it by line item or not. Because I mean, like we might say additional instructors for ESL, right?
Right.
A separate line item, additional.
Yeah, that should be, there are different lines within the education. So yes, there should be 3 different lines.
If you folks can help us on that to make sure we do it right, so we are hitting the right budget item, to get the request hit the right place.
You can ask.
Okay.
So that was one that we include ESL, very important in the school request. English is a second language. And the other one, it's probably think about MOA or include the mayor's office too, because to provide immigration assistance for the application itself. So they could meet with lawyers, or they could meet with anybody, because I don't know if these folks applied already for asylum.
And what department would that run through? Immigration for the cities?
That's federal, right?
No. I'm saying on the city side.
Immigration office, SIMOA. Yeah, which is goes through the mayor's office, is within one of the offices of the mayor's office.
Right. So we need to just pin down exactly, Maria, what office of the mayor's office we're asking.
For immigration,
Right.
Yeah, particularly
Because
for immigration.
we're very much asking for specific funding to be put in a location in a specific agency or sub-agency.
Yeah, I can also help you with that if anything. And the other thing,
Yes, please.
I voted yes on the ULR. PNA. I'm sorry. Can we change my vote?
Of course. Yes. P&E. Yes. No problem.
PNA.
No, not the ULR.
Capital.
No, you mean
Capital.
on the cap. Yes. Got it.
The ULR is capital, so I cannot vote.
Understood.
Sorry.
Right. Katie.
I guess I have a question for those of you who are much more familiar with how the budgeting stuff works. When we were talking at the ACES committee meeting on Monday, we were talking about how it could be an expense item to request funding for a specific 501c3 that is supporting whether it's legal applications for the asylum seekers, or it's their after school programs or whatever. But is my understanding correct that when we're doing this, we're not asking for extra funding to a government agency? We're asking
discretionary funding. So that's different. That comes from the council. So that has nothing to do with the mayor, the budget of the city.
No. It actually does.
That's what we were talking about on in ACES, right?
Right. But understand me. I think, Katie, I think I know what you're asking. Okay. So let me try to get it. Yes, we can ask for funding through a city agency to fund, like we did, Hudson Guild, to do X, Y, or Z. And if we have a not-for-profit that is assisting with immigration, for example, we can ask for funding to be funded through whatever agency normally provides that funding for those sorts of organizations. That's why we have to be very specific, right?
Got it. So it's coming from them then to the organization that we're asking for.
And then what Sabrina speaks to is over and above agency funding, the council puts in discretionary funding to enhance the use. So for example, housing conservation coordinators, a tenant advocate in our district, gets funding from the city of New York under certain programs. The council member adds onto that the discretionary funding to give them additional funding to do things. So they have legal services funding through the specific initiatives, and then they have additional funding. So we can certainly do that, not an issue. But as Jessica's noted, it has to be something we've talked about and engaged with before. So for example, in October, HCC, Housing Conservation, is coming to our committee to ask specifically to assist with funding. They do legal services all the time, but they have some programs that are limited to assist people only through income-based test. Yet we have buildings of mixed incomes of people, and they're not able to represent those people legally in court, in housing court, to make sure they're not evicted from their homes. So we're going to be working, it's that kind of thing we have to always nuance to figure out how to get into the budget and where to put it.
That helped a lot.
Okay.
But I do feel like because of the work that we've done, like we requested the family shelter, right? And now we know that some of the families in the shelter are some of the migrants, right? So
no. Those family shelters are the permanent shelters, not the temporary transient shelters.
Okay.
Those are folks solely referred from DHS who are going to
all the way already through the DHS system.
Yeah.
Okay, I just feel like there are ways that we're going to be able to, with stuff we've already worked on, be able to add in the migrant piece of it as well. So it's not new. Anyway,
maybe we got to figure out the path that gets us to the result.
Yep. Okay.
Anyone else on the budget? All right. So again, we're going to consider this again finally at our October meeting. But I think we did some good work tonight to go through. Do people feel like most people understand what we went through tonight? Give me a nod if yes. Okay, great. Maria, anything else on our agenda?
No, but we talked about Ryan, and I wrote that for capital, but I feel like the discussion was really towards expense.
Ryan is not capital, it's expense.
And I'm curious, when people were talking, well, specifically JD mentioned Ryan, but
I need you to remember that you're an employee of Ryan. You really cannot be speaking about it.
oh, okay.
So,
All right.
Right. So JD mentioned that additional funding for Ryan regarding the specific migrant issue. I think we can easily take that up at our October meeting. Not really a problem.
All right. So
And we will
changing the
build-
arrow.
Yeah, and
to
we will build
expense.
upon Jessica's thought that the executive committee, having acted at that point, gives us the letters that are written. Roberta?
Just to confirm, if something is written about or passed at October's meeting, could it then be considered for the budget?
If it's discussed at our October meeting, because we will have acted.
Yeah.
And then we'll have a letter, but remember, there's a little more process in this after we act. Because we act in October, it's at the November meeting, so we're good with that. Exactly. Thank you, Roberta, for figuring out the path there. We can't we can't miss the steps to get what we want.
Yeah, so if there is something, it could be taken up next month.
Yes. That's why we asked HCC to come on the specific issue, so we can get into budget. Anything? Anyone else except for a motion to adjourn?
Well, there's old and new business, but that's it. Who's making a motion?
Motion.
Second. Thank you, Sabrina. Everyone's in favor of adjourning, please raise your hand. And thank you all for working as hard as we always do. And thanks to the public for attending.
Good night, everyone.